I welcome you all to today's joint press briefing by His Excellency Mr. Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, and His Excellency Mr. Mohammad Tawhid Hussain, Honorable Foreign Advisor, Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh. May I have the honor to request His Excellency Mr. Mohammad Tawhid Hussain, Honorable Foreign Advisor of the Government of Bangladesh, to kindly deliver his remarks.
Thank you. Friends from the media, good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum. It's a great pleasure for me to address you today at this joint press briefing with the United Nations Secretary General, His Excellency Mr. Antonio Guterres. His Ramadan solidarity visit from 13 to 16 March 2025 comes with the 50th anniversary of Bangladesh's membership in the United Nations. This marks a historic moment for both Bangladesh and the United Nations, as the Secretary General himself is witnessing the formative stage of a new Bangladesh, following the supreme sacrifice of the July-August uprising, mass uprising, that aspired for a just, democratic, and inclusive society. The Ramadan solidarity visit is a tradition that Secretary General Guterres himself initiated, and in his language, to remind the true face of Islam. During the trying times, the Secretary General always stood up and expressed solidarity with the true endeavors for discrimination-free, peaceful, democratic society. And so, this visit is significantly meaningful for the government and for the future Bangladesh. He also expressed his full solidarity with the Rohingya people and vowed to work for their repatriation to Myanmar with dignity, security, and rights. During this visit, the Secretary General and his high delegation, that includes among others Under Secretary General Ms. Rabah Fatima, met the Honorable Chief Advisor, visited Cox's Bazar Rohingya camps, met the Rohingya children and youth, witnessed how they get equipped with portable skills and learning opportunities for a dignified return to their homeland, and had an extraordinarily historical solidarity iftar with more than 100,000 Rohingya people along with the Honorable Chief Advisor. To understand the people's aspirations of the future Bangladesh, the Secretary General graced 3 meetings with youth, civil societies, as well as with members of the reform commissions, whose contribution are paving the way for July Charter, the blueprint for country's democratic transition, and draw a political, judicial, electoral, administrative, anti-corruption, and police reforms. During this visit, the Secretary General learned how desperately the Rohingyas want to return to their motherland, uphold their identity, enjoy their rights in the land they will own, and live a life they consider dignified. They are loud and clear that they see a dignified life in their forefathers' land, Rakhine, not in the neighboring country's shelter, the Cox's Bazar camp. They said, even an insect has its own home, but we don't have. Thus, they defined voluntariness and dignity for themselves. The Secretary General, with his gracious presence at Rohingya camp, expressed solidarity to the cravings of the Rohingyas. He spoke aloud to draw the urgent attention of Rohingyas to keep spotlight on them, the most discriminated people of the world. He also assured to provide his support to the successful holding of the UN Conference on Rohingya in September 2025. The Secretary General also learned what legacy the interim government was left with when they took charge. He appreciated the complexities of the reform process for a free and fair election and a real transformation of the country. He promised the UN's total commitment to the reform process under the leadership of Honorable Chief Advisor, and said he will do whatever he can to support the endeavors of the interim government and stand by Bangladesh and its people. The SG also expressed concern with the disinformation targeted against Bangladesh. His visit would more than counterweigh the misinformation and disinformation campaign and the attempts to destabilize Bangladesh. His assurance of support would help us in our successful reform process and our transition to democracy, in line with the common aspirations of the people of Bangladesh. I thank you all.
Thank you, Excellency. Now, May I have the honor to request His Excellency Mr. Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, to kindly deliver his remarks.
I want to thank Chief Advisor Yunus and Foreign Advisor Hussein, the interim government and the people of Bangladesh for your warm welcome. And I want to send my heartfelt greetings to Muslims across Bangladesh and around the world observing the holy months of Ramadan. Ramadan is a time of reflection, spiritual renewal, and unity. Every year, I undertake a solidarity visit and spend time with Muslim communities living in difficult circumstances to observe the fast with them and to help shine a global spotlight on their plight. This year, I decided to come to Bangladesh to express my solidarity with Rohingya refugees and the Bangladeshi people that host them. Fasting and having an iftar together with the Bangladesh communities and the Rohingya communities are the proof of my deep respect for the religion and the culture they represent. And I had an extremely moving visit to Cox's Bazar yesterday. Ramadan reminds us of the universal values that connect humanity: compassion, empathy, and generosity. And Bangladesh is a living symbol of these values through your commitment to peace, development, and humanitarian relief. Bangladesh is among the largest contributors to United Nations peacekeeping. And I want to pay tribute to the sacrifices and dedication of Bangladeshi peacekeepers who serve in some of the most difficult and dangerous environments in the world. I'm particularly pleased to be in Bangladesh at this important moment in your national journey. As the country undergoes a significant transition under the leadership of Chief Advisor Yunus, I recognize the people's hope for a future of greater democracy, justice, and prosperity. This is a pivotal moment for Bangladesh, and the international community must play its part in supporting your efforts towards a just, inclusive, and prosperous future. As the country undergoes important reforms and transitions, I want to assure you that the UN stands ready to assist in fostering peace, national dialogue, trust, and healing. You can count on the UN to be your steadfast partner, working alongside the government and the people of Bangladesh to help build a sustainable, equitable future for all. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, I want to underscore Bangladesh's extraordinary generosity in responding to the Rohingya crisis. It is a testament to your enduring humanitarian spirit. For years, the people of this nation, especially the communities in Cox's Bazar, have hosted over 1 million refugees fleeing violence and persecution. By offering Rohingya refugees sanctuary, Bangladesh has demonstrated solidarity and human dignity, often at significant social, environmental, and economic costs. The world must not take this generosity for granted. I will continue to urge the international community to take greater responsibility and provide the necessary financial and political support for both the refugees and their host communities. But, as I mentioned yesterday in Cox's Bazar, we are on the verge of a deep humanitarian crisis. With the announced cuts in financial assistance, we are facing the dramatic risk of having only 40% in 2025 of the resources available for humanitarian aid in 2024. This would have a terrible consequence, starting with a drastic reduction of food rations. that would be an unmitigated disaster. People would suffer and people would die. I strongly appeal to the international community to allow us to avoid this tragedy. More funding is absolutely essential to guarantee the minimum support to the Rohingya population in Bangladesh. And the United Nations is fully committed to working with Bangladesh and others in finding a lasting solution to the Rohingya crisis that enables their safe, voluntary, dignified and sustainable return to Myanmar, as all the Rohingyas I met yesterday expressed clearly. I know the planning is also underway by UN member states for a high-level conference on the situation of Rohingya Muslims and other minorities in Myanmar. We know the situation there continues to deteriorate. The escalation of violence and human rights violations across Myanmar, including in Rakhine State, are causing civilian casualties and driving displacement internally and across borders. I call on all parties in Myanmar to exercise maximum restraint, prioritize the protection of civilians in accordance with international humanitarian law, and prevent further incitement of communal tension and violence, paving the way for democracy to take root and creation of the conditions for the dignified return of the Rohingya community. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, as we come together in these sacred months of Ramadan, it is more important than ever to focus on solidarity and shared humanity. In this spirit, we will continue standing with the people of Bangladesh as you navigate the challenges and opportunities ahead. Once again, I'm deeply honored to share this moment with you. May this Ramadan bring peace, blessings, and renewed hope to all, and I thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. Dear friends from the press and media, honorable dignitaries will now take questions from the floor. However, due to paucity of time, we have to limit the number of questions to 4. May I also request you to please be precise and brief while asking your questions. Thank you.
Hi, this is Sabiha. I'm currently working at AFP. My question is to His Excellency Mr. Tauhid Hussain. Has the issue of establishing a humanitarian corridor been discussed during this visit? Was there any formal request from the UN, and what was your reply?
It's okay? Okay. Thank you. These are things that actually have been going on in our interaction with the international community, and particularly the UN. In particular, this was not discussed with the Secretary General. This is much more of an operational matter, which we will, of course, deal with the local officers of the UN.
May I kindly request to ask the second question?
Thank you. This is Mustafiz. I work for News, English Daily. My question to Foreign Advisor. His Excellency UN Secretary General said yesterday that solution to Rohingya crisis must be found in Myanmar, and its primary solution is in return of Rohingyas to their homeland Myanmar in a safe, dignified and voluntary manner. So have you got any assurance from UN Secretary General or UN support, assurance of UN support in return of Rohingyas to their homeland? And my second question, do you seek any UN support for return of deposed Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina for justice for crimes committed against humanity during July massacre? Thank you. Since Delhi is not responding to Bangladesh's request for her extradition. Thank you.
Let me start with the second question, which is that we have not discussed this with His Excellency the Secretary General. About the return of the Rohingyas, we are very clear, and you all are very clear about the position that the Secretary General has, and it absolutely coincides with the position of Bangladesh. We want them to return with dignity, with rights, and in security. And this is exactly His Excellency has also mentioned to you right now also and all along. And we believe that and we know it, that the UN is keen to help us in all respects in this regard. So are many of our friends in the international community. The issue is as you have mentioned and as we all agree, is that the solution lies on the other side of the border. And it is time that we unify our efforts to press on the Myanmar authorities. I am not saying only the authority, because there are new realities on the borders. We know that. Let us not go details into it. So we have to convince all of them and put appropriate pressure so that they can go back to their rightful place in dignity and honor.
May I request to kindly ask the third question?
Okay, thank you. I am Mohiuddin Alamgir. I am working with the Daily Star. Yeah, excuse me here. My question is for His Excellency, UN Secretary General. As you mentioned, there is an escalation of violence in Myanmar, particularly in Rakhine. And our foreign advisor also have mentioned there is a new realities in the border, in our border. But my question is that how do you address the famine-like situation in Rakhine? Do you think this instability in Rakhine by any way will affect respectful, peaceful, and dignified repatriation of Rohingyas? What's your take on the issue?
The present situation is a situation in which there is heavy fighting between the Myanmar army and the Arakan army. And obviously, in these circumstances, it would be extremely difficult to have an immediate dignified return of the Rohingya refugees. It is absolutely essential to mobilize the whole of the international community, all the neighbors, not only Bangladesh, all the neighbors of Myanmar, to put pressure to make things move in relation to the need to find a solution, starting by ceasing the violence and at the same time creating the mechanisms of dialogue leading to a true democratic solution in Myanmar that would naturally facilitate the return of the Rohingya refugees. At the same time, we need to intensify the humanitarian aid inside Myanmar to create the conditions for that return to be successful. And that is the reason why one of the discussions we had was about the possibility, if circumstances allow, to have also humanitarian aid channeled from Bangladesh. But that is obviously a matter that would require the authorization and the cooperation of the parties to the conflict.
May I request you to kindly ask the last question of the briefing?
Your Excellency, my name is Mustafizur Rahman. I'm from the Financial Express. My question is that since the UN envoys who visited Dhaka recently, they told us that they're in touch with all the stakeholders of the crisis, including the Arakan army. So do you think that the Arakan army is more favorable in resolving the Rohingya crisis or repatriation? And my second question is, when you talk about the international pressure on Myanmar, so do you suggest more vigorous sanctions like the Europeans do against Russia or elsewhere against Myanmar? Thank you.
First of all, the Arakan Army is an entity with which I believe a necessary dialogue must take place. We know that in the past the relations between the Rakhine and the Rohingya communities were not easy, and so I think it's important to engage the Arakan Army in order for the full respect of the rights of the Rohingya population in Rakhine. In relation to the second question was, I believe that sanctions are one possible instrument. Of course, we would need, and it is difficult to obtain, Security Council approval for sanctions in relation to Myanmar. But those sanctions not being possible, I think it's essential to increase the pressure of all the neighbors in relation to Myanmar in order to guarantee that fighting ends and that a way towards democracy is finally reestablished.
The joint press briefing ends here. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.